what Jokic did in lightly elbowing or chicken winging Matt Ishbia away from trying to get the basketball did not elevate to a point of suspension. He gets a fine, a $25,000 fine. Even that, I think, is stupid. But I think what the NBA there is doing is we want to make sure there's always the line between the player and the fan. And so we have to uphold that line. You made contact with a fan. You can't do that. Here's a light fine. Again, I don't think it was fine-worthy because I think that the owner, the fan of this case, created the mess. But cooler heads prevailed. What I find interesting about this is not that the NBA did not suspend it, because that would have been ridiculous. What I find interesting about this is that Matt Ishbia, as owner of the Phoenix Suns, grabbed a loose basketball and then did not hand it to the player looking for it. You can argue that maybe Jokic was too animated going over there, that he could have waited for the official. Okay? But at its essence, at its core, a non-player, non-official held a basketball away from a player. That's what happened at its essence. Matt Ishbia had a loose ball come to him, grabbed it, and held it. What would we say about that fan? Forget him being an owner. What would we say about a fan that did that? We'd say, what are you doing, moron? You're not part of the game. What are you doing? Give it to the player. What do you think you're doing? And after Jokic tries to grab it out of Ishbia's hands and it kind of pops loose and bounces a couple of rows back, at that point, Jokic has his arms up like, throw me the ball, from one of the other fans. And Ishbia, because he's right 6 inches away from Jokic, puts his right hand on Jokic's hip. There is a moment there right before Jokic kind of chicken wings him where Ishbia kind of is like pushing Jokic away by pushing him on the hip. What would we say to a fan that touched a player? This person who was not playing and not an official grabbed a basketball, held it, controlled it away from a player, and then put his hands on a player. This was one of the most glaring incidents of an owner thinking he could do whatever he wanted. He didn't play by any of the rules that his league set forth. Come on, if that happened at the Chase Center in San Francisco, if that happened on the flip side of that series in Denver, if that happened when his Suns were playing on the road and a player held a basketball and then put a hand on the hip of Kevin Durant, held the basketball from Devin Booker, then put a hand on Devin Booker's hip, Matt Ishbia would more than likely say to the opposing owner, that fan's got to get kicked out. He can't be courtside anymore. We can't have that. If that happened in Phoenix, another Suns fan, my guess is Ishbia would have to say, yeah, that fan can't sit courtside anymore. Or that fan can't come to the playoffs anymore. Because we can't have a fan hold the basketball away from a player and then put his hand on the player. Can't happen. And yet Ishbia broke all of those rules. And why does that happen? Because he was a former player? I mean, puke. He was a walk-on that paid his way onto a basketball team. Okay? Oh, he played 16 games their season. How many minutes did he play? And how many minutes of those, whatever minutes that he played, were not in blowout human victory cigar fashion when Michigan State led by 25 and they let the walk-ons get in? I mean, give me a break. Like, Ishbia isn't a former athlete and finally clicked into, oh, I'm just in competitive mode. He is the rich kid that bought the toy and believed he was not applicable to the rules of the other fans. It's a sniveling, punk rich kid move. That's what I D.A. did. Now, I D.A. takes over for a terrible owner, Robert Sarver. Everybody hated. So the Suns get a new lease on life. He's the new wonderkind of the NBA. So nobody wants to criticize him too badly. He seems like a happy guy. He wants to do right by the Suns fans. He's going to put their games on free TV. Okay, so I.D.A. has done a lot of good things. But this is a sniveling, bratty, rich kid move. I've got the basketball, and I'm holding it away from you. You can't do that. No. You're not a player. You're not an official. You're not a coach. You're not an equipment manager. No. You're a fan. That's it. You're a really powerful fan, but that fan behavior would not be tolerated unless he was one of the 30 owners and worth $5 billion. It's a brat move. So if Jokic was going to get suspended for that, I would have gone crazy. They didn't suspend him because they know I.D.A. was in the wrong. He was absolutely in the wrong. A bratty, sniveling, rich kid. I can do whatever I want, daddy, type of move. My only wish was that Jokic really got him with the elbow right in the nose, spurted some blood there. Then I.D.A. wouldn't be so fast to hang on to a loose basketball. Get some blood gushing from rich kid's nose.
You really hate the rich kid.
I hate the behavior like this when it comes from... There's plenty of rich people that do well with money, and they're not idiots, and they don't act entitled, and they do good things with money.
Totally. But
this guy, it's a brat move.
I would say if there was blood, though, Jokic would have been suspended, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, but it would have served I.D.A. well to just take a chicken wing in the nose.
Was there somebody that shoved you in a locker when you were a kid, maybe, that acted like this? I'm sensing something under the table here.
No.
Did he team up with a fat guy who was a doofus? And then
No, I don't think so.
No, you sure?
No.
Because I do sense hate in those realms here right now.
The entitlement of wealth and power leading to bad behavior always bothers me, because it's like the people that have that act like they don't get to play by the rules of everybody else. And this is a case where they're validated.
True.
Other fans the rest of us would have get kicked out of those seats, kicked out of that game, not be allowed back in that building. I.D.A. is going to be sitting right in that same seat, I'm sure.
We've had NBA players, throw fans out basically for too much heckling. So, of course, if you're sitting there holding a ball, you should be ejected or thrown away, yeah.
Think about the relationship between the player and the fan. Anthony Edwards is frustrated at the end of a playoff series and takes a folding chair, doesn't throw it at anybody, but takes a folding chair and kind of like spins it because he's frustrated. It happens to nick a fan on the ankle, and the fan is suing for assault. That's how thin that line is between player and fan. Here's I.D.A. holding the basketball away from a player and then putting his hand on the player. Not okay. Not okay in any way, shape, or form. He's a brat.